Welcome to the Big Fat Real Estate Checks podcast with Marco Kozlowski, where we help investors like you get the knowledge and skills you need to replace your JOB with passive cash flow for life.
Hey, Marco here. I really wanted to share with you our earlier podcasts that we created. Now, our mics were not the best, but the content was really strong, and I know you will learn a lot. We had an absolute blast recording this, and I know you're absolutely going to love it as much as we loved recording it. This extremely content-rich information will not only give you the edge in your real estate investing business, but in everyday life. Enjoy.
So what are we talking about, boys?
Failures.
Failure.
Is it recording?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So in this episode, we're going to talk about failure and what does failure really mean and what really defines failure. Most are terrified to fail, I think. You know, if I try this, I'm going to fail. If I try this, it's not going to work. If I try this, well, first of all, you use the word try.
Yes. The worst word in the dictionary.
Right. And try basically, what's the problem with the word try is it gives you an exit.
Actually, you don't even do it. Try and clap your hands. Show me. Try and clap your hands. Yeah, this is trying to clap. You don't even clap. Like, you never do it.
Right.
So this is why it's the worst. It's the worst word.
I want to do an instant replay of that and just watch your faces as you start doing it over and over and over again and use that against you multiple times
That's
throughout our
okay.
relationships.
I'm comfortable.
That's really, really funny. So it's either do or don't. You know, I think it was Yoda that said something about trying.
Yeah. There's no try. It's either do it or you don't.
Yeah, it's do or do not. That's correct.
Yeah.
And that's the point is don't try, just do it or don't do it. And you have to make a commitment and, a commitment to get it done. And if you commit to doing something, usually you get it done. Now, are there going to be bumps and bruises along the way? And are there going to be some learning curves along the way? And is it going to take time? And is there going to be pain and suffering possibly that is associated with that? Absolutely. Yes. That's the fun. And you learn so much about yourself, the process, what to do, what not to do. I have massive HD ADHD, which is high definition attention deficit. Squirrel! Yeah, right? I can't even finish the damn sentence.
He's got 8 key fucking
AK-47, whatever. I got all the letters of the alphabet soup, you know. And the only thing that was an acceptable result was financial freedom to me, and it didn't matter what it took, and I got there. And now I had to take classes, I had to learn things, I had to screw up some deals, I had to piss some people off, and then I wanted to teach people how to do it. And in that, you know, you're putting yourself in the fire where anyone on the internet has an opinion on, you know, that has never even met me or even been to my class, or someone maybe took my class. You know, they never tried, and it was my fault that it didn't work. You know, does that ever happen?
Oh, my God.
You know, shit. You know, I can't tell you how many people have taken my class, even paid for mentorship. I have people that have paid $100,000 to work with me on a project and never even showed up. Because I charge to make sure that you're committed, to make sure that you're going to get a certain result. It's not, you know, it's not free. I need to see your commitment. Because if someone ponies up generally a certain amount of cash, like on a hotel, if you want to buy a hotel that makes a few $100,000, a month, I don't want to put my time, money, and energy into something that I'm not, you know, I want to see that you're committed first. So they pony up the cash and they don't even show up. I'm like, are we buying this or not? Disappeared and I never returned my call. Crazy.
Maybe they thought you were going to do it for them. But so they invested money with you to show them because they didn't know how to do something.
And I can walk them through it, yes.
Investments to walk it through. So they paid, you know, a good investment.
And you call it an investment. Then right there, just that's success talk versus
broke
someone
talk.
would have said, you know, broke talk would have been it cost this much, right? So it's interesting.
If you invest $100,000 and the property makes $1 million a year, would you invest $100,000 to make $1 million a year?
Yeah. And how many times would you do that?
Well, most would say none because they don't have $100,000.
Yeah.
Or I would never pay $100,000 because I can learn this shit on YouTube.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, really.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. just go on YouTube and learn it.
Yeah.
Well,
That's how you're gonna lose $1 million or $100,000 by YouTube. But anyway, so going back to that individual who invested $100,000 to overcome their fear, so you can teach them what they don't know, so they can be successful, and then they don't show up. That's horrible. And my fear was not knowing things, and that's everyone's fear. It's just not knowing, and they use that. A lot of people use, and myself included, I used to use it as an excuse. I don't know. I'm the type that I want to see, and you got to have your end goal. I get that, but you don't need to know all the nuts and bolts. So you need to know your end goal, but not necessarily the exact path you're going to take there. People think that straight line, whatever. It's not always going to be a straight line, and usually it's not a straight line. It's zigzag.
it's never a straight line. I've never seen anyone go from A to B in a perfect straight line.
And whoever tells you they did that is lying.
It's a complete bullshit.
Yeah.
So people that try are the ones that when they know where they want, or maybe they don't know, but they know where they want to achieve, but they need to know the nuts and bolts to get there. And if they don't know those nuts and bolts, that's where the fear comes in. And that fear, they don't want to do anything. And that's a form of procrastination. They're like, you know what? I don't know it. I don't want to do it. There's too many variables. There's too many ifs. And there is a lot of variables.
But there's also the fear of failure. I think
But what is failure? So what is failure?
That's a
Fear
good
of
question.
failure. So I go and I go to a seminar or a class, or I go on YouTube and I take all these notes, and then what's failure? Is failure not going to take a class? Is failure staying on your couch?
Well, it depends what your objective is. I think failure depends on what your own objective is. If your objective is to get from point A to point B, then not getting to point B equals failure.
So if my objective was to have 100 properties and I only have 80, is that a failure?
It's failure towards your objective. Is it you're on your way to success? Because you've defined success as getting to 100 properties now. So you didn't fail yet because you didn't stop. I think failing is when you stop trying or stop.
So failure is quitting.
I agree.
Or not even starting.
Or not
Because
starting.
you-
It's the
Good
same
point.
thing.
You go, when I used to go to conferences or whatever, in business conferences, what you see is here. This is what you see. So the stuff that on the screen, whatever, you see people take a picture of the
pictures.
notes or whatever.
They're not engaged.
And they're
They did that even back in your
day.
day. You didn't have cameras.
No, we had
on
the
your
big,
phones.
we had the big ass film
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, he had the
Polaroids.
No, he had the tube.
with the screen on top of his
Yes.
head.
We had to put the flash on top,
Yes,
whatever,
yes.
and I only had 5, and I couldn't review. So the people in front of me got blinded temporarily.
Everyone was wearing hats in those days and trench coats.
So those are the people. So yes, failure is not starting. So they're taking these pictures, or even they're taking notes, whatever. But how much are they actually implementing? Some of them don't even implement one thing.
Nothing.
So failure is not even starting something, not even giving you a chance to fail, right? And failure. Well, what is it? Edison, with the light bulb. How many times did he didn't classify it as failure? It's just
Colonel Sanders.
Yeah.
How many times did he try building a business and he only achieved it when he was in the 70s?
Yeah, Colonel Sanders. Yeah.
He's tried a
He was
million
7 years
things.
old.
Huh?
Yeah. He was 7 years old when he started KFC.
But if you don't fail, the failing, think of failing as a step, and the more times you fail, the better you're gonna get at achieving your goal. And if you think you're people say I don't feel it, I don't feel it.
What's the difference between you and someone who's more successful than you?
Someone that failed more.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And people, I don't know, I guess they fail to realize this, play on words, but failing is an integral part of success. It's not even something, you shouldn't be ashamed of failing. Failing is actually, to me, is a sign of success or success to come. So even when you're talking to other people, if you fail at something, because we've all failed at something, everybody's tried something and failed, you have to talk about that. Talk about your failures, and what's most important is what did you learn from that specific failure, and how are you making that change in everything that you're going forward with? Because if you don't learn from failure, then that's a problem.
That's the failure.
That's the failure.
There's the wound right there.
Mm-hmm.
Is it's doing or learning and doing, having not the right result, and then not learning from that result and continuing that pattern. That's the definition of insanity, right? Do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So are you insane by doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result?
According to the definition, you are.
Or even worse, don't
Or
do
not,
anything. Like we had, I'm sure each one of us can share stories on shit that went bad.
Holy moly, we can have like 10 shows.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So shit that went bad. Am I never going to buy a motel now because I went through a 2-year or a year and a half ordeal, like shit after shit after shit after shit after shit? I learned from it.
You're gonna buy differently,
and I'm gonna buy differently. But the buying is okay. It was all the other shit that followed with it, right? But you stopping after all those failures or those setbacks or whatever, that's the actual failure.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, you take that, you harness it, and you're like, all right, what do I do next? Right now, I just had to contract someone right now, and I learned from the motel where I had shit in there that I wouldn't have had before. I had like timelines. What happens if they don't meet that timeline? There's a penalty of $200 a day if they don't meet that. I have specific draws now. So I learned from that mistake, and it just makes me better and better, and I'm comfortable with that.
And nothing was perfection doesn't exist.
No.
There's no such thing as perfection. If you're a perfectionist, a perfection is like the horizon. Well, it is.
Well, yeah.
Perfection is the horizon.
Yeah.
Because the horizon changes as you go towards it. It's always ahead of you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you expect perfection, it's never going to be that. You're always going towards it's like, I'm going to get to the horizon. You can't get there. It's impossible. So, and some people don't even start doing something because they don't start until they want to get it perfect, which is,
never going to happen.
Never going to happen. So, so you don't have to be perfect to get started, but you certainly have to get started to get perfect, right? Mm-hmm. But perfection doesn't exist. As a pianist, I was a concert pianist. I practiced hours and hours a day, and I never played the piece perfectly. I was never satisfied, which also at one point brought me no joy, because I could never get to the point where I wanted the piece. And no matter how beautifully I played and how much I even won competitions, I still wasn't happy because it wasn't perfect. And that was actually sabotaging myself, because no matter how much I did something, because it wasn't perfect and it didn't match my vision, I thought it wasn't good enough, no matter how awesome it was for everyone that was listening to me, which is terrible behavior, in fact. So if you're a perfectionist or a procrastinator, and you know what the definition of procrastination is, the real definition of procrastination, you guys know what it is, really?
You're going to tell us next time.
Tell us.
I'll tell you tomorrow, okay? So, yeah. You can't, all joking aside, you gotta just, and that's failure, procrastination in some ways. Just do something. Go towards that, move towards the direction that you want to go to without an excuse, and hold yourself accountable as to when and how you're going to get there. I have to set my goals, which is important. Mm-hmm. Right? This is the goal that I want to achieve. Again, how do you win a game?
Planning.
There are rules around winning a game, right?
Yep.
If I'm playing football, I can't bring out a baseball bat.
But you got to know the rules first. That's
right. So what are the rules? So we can have that on a different podcast, right? But I think ultimately understanding first that, what do you want to achieve out of your life, the very short life that we have. I'm at a point now when I know I have more life behind me than I do in front of me. I'm at that realization.
Yeah, I'm there. You just made me realize it. But so disappointed.
But seriously,
the reality is
you're right.
The reality is I have more life behind me.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Than I do in front of me.
This is a real bummer. But yes,
it depends, because a lot of you probably have more time ahead of you.
Aside,
and we don't really know.
Yeah.
It's not a joke.
No,
it's true for me anyway. I don't know about you. I don't expect it to live until I'm 100 necessarily, but I think that in the short time that I have on this earth left, I want to make sure that I am going above and beyond, doing everything that I can on a daily basis to achieve whatever goals I can, because it's not the goal that actually is my goal. It's the journey to get to my goal. So my perception has changed to, I want to get to the horizon, to I want to just enjoy the journey as I move towards the horizon, because I don't know how much time I have left. And I want to surround myself with cool people, and I couldn't find any, so here I found these two guys, right? I want to have as much fun as my life as I can, and I want to enjoy everything that I'm doing and make money at the same time. and I'm blessed that I'm able to position myself and make that happen. Anyway, that's my rant for that.
You know what? That's you nailed it. It's the journey that you got to enjoy. So that's why people say set an unrealistic goal sometimes, like a huge goal that you'll never reach because it's going to be the journey. And if you think big and you come short of that, is that okay? Absolutely. If you dreamed big.
If you're a perfectionist, it's going to be terrible.
Yeah, a perfectionist,
which is going to be failure.
But that can change. I mean, I was a perfectionist growing up as a kid, and that's changed because I understood that there's no such thing, or there's always something that can be done better.
But what if something goes wrong?
The only thing.
Well, so what? Then
the only thing you can perfect is math. Everything else is subjective. What's your perfection when you were playing the piano? No one would know the difference anyways.
Yeah, but that's
the outcome's still the same.
But that's the point. Is some maybe are listening to this and they know that it's not perfect, and everyone else thinks it's beautiful.
Yes,
right?
exactly. The outcome's still the same.
And the madness in this is that it is subjective.
Yeah.
Right. So failure. But what is failure specifically? Because if you're not in the place that you want to be, then am I a failure? If I don't have $1 billion in my bank account, am I a failure because I wanted 10 billion? Like, I don't know. It's a subjective. It's also very subjective as to how we look at things.
It might be a failure to you, and it might be a success to someone else, right?
But even if you did have big goals and you wanted X amount of money or X amount of properties in your portfolio at the end of the year or at the end of 5 years or whatever, and you're short of that, it's okay because you did something, you got something, and you can move towards that because your goals always change. My goals changed. Shit, I only wanted to live. I still live humbly, but I wanted a certain amount just to replace my income from my job. But now I want a little bit more as I get older.
Achieve goals.
As you achieve goals, they're going to always change. And I believe in doing like an affirmation and saying, okay, this is what I'm setting out to do this year. But think big. And if you don't achieve exactly what you set out to do at the beginning of the year, it's okay. Because at least you're a lot more forward than where you were today.
You need to have a destination all the time.
Absolutely.
And once you reach your destination, if you don't have another one, then you're just going to stay there.
Well,
so at the end of the day, you got to have a destination and start going there.
But let's wind this back to the point of this episode is failure. So how do we define failure? It's subjective.
It is subjective.
So, and do you want to be the reporter? Do you want to be the fan, or do you want to be the player that decides that? Because you can play as a player full out and not score any goals, but have done extremely well in the game.
Correct. And
but the key is to play the game.
And how often do you hear a coach talk up someone who wasn't even on the score sheet because of the performance they had, whereas the average fan doesn't really understand? Or say, well, he has no points in this game, so he pretty much wasn't there. But everything's on the stats sheet, basically.
But even people that don't even, you're on the team, so you could be a player on the bench and you'll have a big impact in that
100%.
game. Right? So it doesn't mean you have to even play. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Even the water boy gets a Super Bowl ring. Anyone that's on the team gets a ring because they're on the team, and that's the point.
They play a part of it.
They play a part, yeah. So you have to play in order to win.
Yes.
And if you don't play, then I believe that's failure.
Yes.
I think that's because we're really having a discussion that we haven't really discussed ever. I have never really had this open discussion on success or failure. How do you define success? How do you define failure? I think if you're a perfectionist and want 100, if your goal is to get 100 doors and you only get to 80, are you a failure at that point? Most people would say no because you got to 80.
Exactly.
But I think the point is to never achieve your goals.
Or not even have them.
I think that's the point. The point is to always have something more.
That makes sense.
Because as soon as you achieve your goals, then what? In fact, statistically, most people die within 5 years of retirement.
Yeah.
Why?
Because they have no more goals.
Because their goal was to retire. They get there and they're like, now what?
Exactly.
I have nothing to do.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
I had a goal of retiring by the time I was 40.
Ironically.
Right? And I'm working harder now because I'm not really working, I'm playing. Work to me is toil and labor. Mm-hmm. And I've seen 4 kids come out of my wife at the time. I don't want an umbrella opened in my nether regions, That's kind of what it is. It's like a huge deal. That's labor. I know what labor looks like. It was 16 hours for the first one.
Oh, wow.
And she was in a lot of pain, no drugs. And she learned her lesson the second time, at least that's what she said. But he came out in
Not having
20
children
minutes.
or taking the drugs.
I'll have her answer that question. But it's where am I going with this?
With the retirement and everything.
It's pain, right? That it's the I don't want to do something that's necessarily painful, but I have to go through the pain in order to get to the pleasure.
Right.
And I think creating an environment for yourself that allows you to move towards something, even if it's for 15 small minutes a day or every other day, that moving towards something in itself is successful, and making sure that you have realistic, achievable milestones, but the goal has to be like really far out of reach, like $1 billion.
That's right. But have small steps to
it's
get
small
there.
step, yeah. It's just 1 0 at a time.
Because then you're going to experience success. If you make smaller goals that are really achievable and attainable, they'll become successes, and it takes a bunch of small successes to get to the big success.
Actually, if you're watching, which obviously you will be if you're listening to this, but actually, going back to the retirement, if you look retirement up in the dictionary, many of you say, I just want to retire and then I'll do my shit, whatever. Look up the word retirement or retire in the dictionary. It's not pleasant.
It's death. No,
it's almost like that.
Yeah.
Take out of useful use.
Yeah.
Like shit. That's what you guys are waiting for.
Yeah.
Or my previous friends or my colleagues at
like
work.
the cameras you
You're
used
waiting
use,
to
right?
be
If you're
taken
retired.
out of useful use. That's a horrible word. I never want to retire.
An iPhone 1.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Like
That's
the first
what it is.
iPhone.
It's been retired for a while.
But the iPhone now, or if you're an Android user or whatever, but the first version of those were what they were, and they were the best that they were at the time. And look at the difference now to what they were. They've evolved because of the lessons learned, because of the feedback gotten, because of whatever it is.
But sorry, just because you're right, they were seen as a success too at the time they came out. And
Absolutely.
now, if you look back, they're like failures because they're so much better.
Well, but they knew they weren't perfected at that point. They knew that phone, okay, this is what we have, but we want it better. But the consumer, like, this is the best
They were
thing
already
since
saying
sliced
about
bread.
the second and the third.
Yes.
Apple was the player in that story,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're all the fans using them.
Absolutely. So going back to what you're saying, you have to have those failures to get to your to reach your goals, basically.
So
If that makes any sense.
yes.
But yeah,
But the objective is to never reach your goal.
that's right.
Because if you do, then you're failing technically.
Yes.
Because you've achieved something that you shouldn't
And then
achieve.
you're retiring once you reach your goal, which is, I just finished telling you what retirement
what?
means. It's horrible.
Yeah, but
What
look
can
it
you do
up.
with that?
Look
Yeah.
it up in the
Look it
dictionary.
up.
It's worth
So-
it.
Yeah.
Webster Dictionary, whatever, look it up on Google.
What if
and
I have
you'll
Oxford?
see. You
Yeah.
can
What
do
if I have
Oxford.
the Oracle?
It
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
they have a different
They'll
definition.
have different variances, but in the
Yeah.
end, it's the same thing.
It's with an accent.
That's what it is. Yes. Oxford.
To retire.
To take out of useful use. Yeah, it's just a horrible thing. So that's why people
Never
probably
do a
die
British
within
accent.
5-6 years.
Never do a
I'm
British
not
accent.
gonna do
Thank
Never
you.
do that
I
again.
agree with you.
it. Okay. All right.
Never do that.
I'll try another one. All right. Forgive me. But I tried. I not tried.
No,
I did it.
you
I
did
did
it.
it. I
You
did
did
it.
And
Yeah.
failed miserably.
What's okay?
But we had fun doing it.
It's okay.
And that's the point. See, and it's okay. That's the point. Is
Maybe it was more
you,
Irishman.
You have to be no, it wasn't that either.
No.
You have to be okay with it not being okay, and it's not the goal that matters. It's the journey, and enjoying that journey. And why? And as soon as you shift that position to, do you want a few extra commas in your bank account, like positive ones? You want zeros in your account, but in the right direction, and the comma's going in the right direction. If you have 0.0001 penny, it's a problem. But and all money is a result of certain behaviors. So the key is to change the behaviors that you have of success on a daily basis. Reprogram yourself to what a failure actually is. It doesn't mean that you haven't tried. It means remove try, just do, and see what the feedback is on that accomplishment. And understand it's one step at a time. If I'm only allowed to drive from here, Florida, to California, which is or even to Seattle, or if I was going to go to Alaska, or if I was going to do in the winter, I could actually go into India if I wanted to, because I could go through, you can actually drive in the winter over the ice into Russia, don't know if you knew that or not.
No, I didn't
There's
know
an
that.
ice bridge that you can
Okay.
take by car through Alaska into Russia.
Really?
All right. I could drive all the way down to like in Asia if I wanted, like in Europe. I could go all the way
Yeah.
over to
Yeah,
Europe
once
the other
you're
way.
there.
All right. But if I'm only allowed to do it 15-minute increments, it would take a while. But I'd get there eventually.
Well, the ice will melt.
I have to time it right. Timing is important, right? But the point is could I do it in only 15-minute increments? The answer is it would take a while, but yes.
As long as you did it.
But I'd have to do it consistently, right? But imagine that the new experiences that I would have in that 15 minute, now let's say that I want to do now an hour a day of that. So I'd be in the car enjoying the journey for 30 minutes or
Yep.
45 minutes or an hour.
Yep.
I'd have to get out, I can't stay in the car for the rest of the day. I have 23 more days. I would learn so much about what's happening around me. That'd be a really interesting thing to do, actually.
Yeah.
Is only drive for an hour, be stuck in that area, explore for 23 hours, whatever's going on, and have a sleep.
And get
And
back.
then do another hour
Yeah.
and see what happens every hour and then document that. That'd be so cool.
So is that what you're doing?
No. But it'd be really, really interesting to do that. The things I would learn, now would I learn more in the hour or would I learn more in the 23?
Well, I would think the 23.
Yeah.
100%.
So
Depends what you're doing, but yeah.
the point is it's the journey around that. So most of you think maybe it's the hour that I'm driving that's getting me somewhere, but most of my education would be in the 23.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's what happens after the drive that really matters. So that's kind of the picture I'm trying to paint here in this.
But everyone goes through this in life in general. They just don't realize it. Like, I mean, I know when I went to college, I mean, it was about going and get my diploma, but it's the memories I've made with all the people around me during the time I wasn't in class that actually is the memory, and that's what I'm taking advantage of now.
But that's part of the journey.
But that's what I mean.
That's part of the journey.
But we all have a journey. It's just that nobody really takes time to realize that it's not necessarily what they're trying to achieve. It's the whole picture they got to look at. And I learned a lot more from the time I wasn't in class with all these people than when I was in class.
I was stuck for 24 years doing the same journey. I was going to the same place, sadly. So I was driving to the same place.
It's a quarter century, man.
It's a quarter of a century. Thanks for making me feel bloody hell. Is that better? No, not good.
We should never do this again.
But it's the one journey, and that's where most people are at, and that's where I was at, and I'm sure that's where you were at, and that's where you were at. Marco was in the same journey. So we're just saying, expand your horizon by taking the journey 15 minutes or a half hour at a time or an hour at a time, and go to different destinations, and that's how you're gonna grow.
And it's never too late to start. And like, even if it took you whatever a quarter century here, it's still better that you did that now than had you been stuck another quarter century doing what you were doing.
Now is always the best time, and if it's not now, when is now the good time?
The best time was.
Well,
20 years ago.
people make excuses for themselves. Oh, I'll do it next year when the kids graduate. I'll do it when I have this. I'll do it when I have that. But you know what? Some people don't have that luxury.
Procrastination.
Well, some people don't have that luxury. Like one like I told, I think on another episode, there was one girl, a dear friend of mine at work, and she wanted to travel. She wanted to go see Europe.
Yeah.
She wanted to go see France. She wanted to go see Italy,
Ran out of time.
especially Italy. That Venice is it's going in the water, whatever. And she didn't get that opportunity because she said, when this happens, then I'll do this. But she died.
She ran out of time.
retired. She ran out of time, so she couldn't do that journey. And how sad is that? You work, she had more years on. She worked like 35 years for that dream just to go to Europe and Italy and the UK or wherever she wanted to go. And she wasn't able to do that. And that's a horrible ending. That's a horrible journey because she kept going to the same place. She wasn't moving forward. And I don't wish that upon anyone. That's a terrible way to go.
So to wrap this up, failure is
not doing anything, period.
It's also an integral part of success.
and if you can't have one without the other.
Impossible.
And it's a lot cheaper to learn from someone else's failures
That's true.
than it is in your own. So learn from as many other failures as possible, but you have to go through your own in order to get there.
And make sure you learn from them. Write down what your mistakes were, and don't repeat them.
But you can learn from others.
You can, that's what I'm saying, but you got to still learn from your own. I mean, we're all going to make mistakes, even though I know I've learned a lot from, your mistakes, other people's mistakes around me, but I make them as well, and I got to learn from
You
those.
learn the lesson better when
Yeah.
you make it yourself, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Agreed.
So just get out there and do it. We know you can do it.
Maybe give them some homework here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do something.
That, but also look back at your past failures and write down what you've learned from them and what you're not going to repeat. And I know I've done this before. I've made mistakes in my past that I've remade. Maybe look at how many times you've made some mistakes and figure out why you're doing that.
Well, not the mistakes, but just write down one thing that will help you move forward towards your never achieving goal. One thing that you're going to do starting tomorrow or starting today. One thing, 15 minutes. And then you can start just
How about
one
right
thing.
now?
Or right now. Okay, as soon as you finish listening to this, seriously think about it. What's one thing that you can do to better yourself to move you towards your goal?
And write it down.
And write it down, but most importantly, do it. Don't be that's the...
Put
that's
15
the-
minutes into your calendar and do something every day
Yeah.
and get towards that goal.
Yeah.
And let us know how it goes.
All right. Cheerio.
Cheerio. Ta-ta. Ta-ta for now.
If you like this episode of Big Fat Real Estate Checks, then show some love by leaving a comment and a good rating. Also, as a thank you for tuning in today, we've got a special free gift. The journey to passive cash flow for a life starts by finding deals, and it's easier than you think. Simply go to getdealsbytuesday.com, enter your email address, and we'll send you a free quick start course called Deals by Tuesday. Even if it's 11 p.m. Monday night, this course will show you how to find discounted real estate deals by Tuesday. It's that fast and simple. Go to getdealsbytuesday.com and start your journey toward life-changing cash flow today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.